Not so long ago, when I bought a Pagani Design watch, my expectations were of premium materials. They somehow always managed to squeeze in sapphire crystal and decent movement for the price that really defies the law of commerce. However, when it came to build quality, quality control, or lume for that matter, well, things were not as bright. Now, this watch over here is an attempt to turn this around, and they even succeeded in some areas. Yes, when I tested the features of this watch, I actually had to double check if this is really a Pagani design or some other quite popular premium brand on AliExpress. However, there is a twist, as always. So, is this watch going to propel Pagani design to new heights? Well, we have it here. Let's find out. Hello and welcome to the channel. This GMT watch packs a few surprises, and I must say these surprises are mostly good ones. As a matter of fact, there is specifically 2 points that I haven't seen at that level of execution on Pagani Design watches before, and I will come to those later in this video. Now, this watch is one of the recent releases, and Pagani Design sent it to me a couple of weeks ago for review, and that is the reason, of course, you saw a pop-up at the start of this video. All the links to the product listings will be in the description, and there's also a $20 discount code. I believe the code will be valid for a limited period, possibly at least a couple of months or so, but limited nevertheless. I will try to keep the code up to date when this one expires if Pagani Design sends me a new one, so do keep an eye on the description area. So this is a homage to a very popular GMT timepiece, but Pagani Design, while sticking with the key elements, still managed to leave a small but I would say not insignificant mark on the overall look of this watch. 2 marks to be precise, first one being the size of this watch and the second, the absence of the date on the dial. So let's look at the size. I think going smaller than 42mm, which is somewhat oversized by today's standards, and at the same time not making it too small, Pagani Design went with 40mm diameter here, which I must say is probably a Goldilocks size and should work on most resizes. Looking at the rest of the dimensions, we have 14mm case height, 20mm lug width, and a very well managed end-link to end-link distance of 48.7mm. However, because of a slightly protruding end-links, the actual lug-to-lug distance is even smaller, coming at 47mm, and we can take a full advantage of this by using a native style or a leather strap, which actually suit this watch very well, as I will demonstrate later in this video. And of course, such a compact distance makes this watch very versatile. The stainless steel bracelet has a nice taper down to 18mm at the clasp, and at full length will cover 8.5 inches or 21.5 cm circumference wrists. And as supplied, this watch weighs 152 grams and 139 grams after adjusting it to my about 7-inch wrist. Case and movement. The full stainless steel construction, case build and finishing is really good. The lugs are nicely sculpted and the case has a consistent radial brushing on top and a longitudinal brushing on the sides. The high polish chamfer that runs along the flanks provides a nice visual break on the otherwise all brushed case surfaces. The side screw-down crown has a good grip and a subtle conical taper towards the case. Okay, no points for originality, but it does look good and completes the vintage aesthetics of the head of this watch. The back of the case features simple screw-on exhibition cover through which we can see Seika's NH34 GMT movement. This Japanese Seika automatic mechanical movement created a mini revolution within budget GMT watches in the last year, so it hardly needs any introduction, but for completeness I will put the key specifications on the screen. As I mentioned already, the case finishing and overall execution is very good. Lux curvature allows for a comfortable wrist fit, and as a cherry on the top we have declared very practical 200 meters of water resistance, so perfectly suitable for swimming. We have here what looks like a ceramic insert bezel. It is 120 clicks unidirectional bezel with 24-hour scale. I know that bidirectional bezel is more suited to a GMT functionality, however, while a bit less convenient, this unidirectional bezel still does the job perfectly fine. The resistance is good, ensuring that bezel stays in place, the grip is well machined and is easy to engage. And then there is the bezel action. It is actually very good, and it is one of the two quite pleasant surprises that I referred to at the start of this review. Rotating the bezel is somewhat a satisfying affair, it is nice and tactile, and the tolerances are definitely better than I've seen on other Pagani Design watches I've reviewed so far. Okay, there is a slight backplate, but definitely not at the level I've experienced from this brand before. The bezel action is definitely more on par with the watches of around $200 mark. Right, hold that thought. And the alignment is spot on, which is great. And here is how this bezel sounds. Crystal. Okay, the second really impressive thing about this watch is the crystal. I reviewed a few Pagani Design watches recently and most of them had a really good build, but were somewhat let down by the quality of the crystal. This is not the case here. We have a double dome sapphire crystal with a very effective anti-reflective coating and a really, and I mean it, really good clarity. We can clearly see the dial at even most acute viewing angles. There is no haziness or any other impediments that we sometimes encounter on the cheaper crystals. Okay, a good, well-executed dial helps this legibility somewhat, and we will look at the dial next. Dial. So yes, as with the rest of this watch, Pagani Design gets almost no points for originality here. I say almost because they didn't include the date on this dial, which in my books is a slight oversight. However, if you belong to a non-date purist camp, then you might view it as a big plus. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, the dial is done really well. We have black background with a very subtle sunburst effect, the applied Arabic hour markers with high polished framing pop off the dial and are very easy to read. The well-proportioned gilded hands further enhance the legibility of this timepiece, and nice accents of red on the GMT hand and on the wording on the dial complements the dark green color of the ceramic bezel insert. And the applied minute track brings all the visual elements of the dial and the bezel together. Like I said, it is a very well done dial, however, looking at the loom kinda brings back the reality that we are dealing with Pagani Design watch. Well, to be fair, we do have loomed hands and our markers and fully loomed bezel, which is good. We also have a C3 superluminova applied in all the right places, which is also good. However, the loom consistency and longevity leave much to be desired, putting it politely. The only minor consolation here is that the hands fade last, however, still the loom level is underwhelming, especially considering the price point, which we actually haven't discussed yet. Right, the bracelet. Well, it is probably the best described by "it is nice from far, but far from," well, you probably know the rest. Okay, maybe I am being too harsh. The bracelet actually looks okay and has a few very good things going for it, like solid inverted end links and solid links. The finishing is also pretty decent and each link is constructed out of 5 parts with a combination of brushed and high polished surfaces, giving the links an even somewhat premium look. However, if we examine the bracelet in more detail, then things don't look as rosy, especially the end links integration with the case. And while I can still be okay with the difference in brushing strokes and direction between the end links and the lugs, the protrusion of the end links by about 1 mm beyond the end of the lugs is slightly harder to overlook. And then we have this clasp. Okay, it is well-functioning double deployment clasp, which even features a milled inner scissor mechanism. However, it definitely doesn't match the premium look and feel of the head of this watch. Okay, the bracelet maybe isn't the best feature of this watch, however, truth be told, it still wears okay on this bracelet. However, luckily for us, we can always remove the bracelet and go for alternative, like this NATO-style strap, which was included with my watch. Or even better, in my humble opinion, with this brown leather strap. And thanks to a very compact 47mm lug-to-lug distance, as we can see, this watch works well on the slimmer wrists too. Price and verdict. So you probably noticed that I haven't mentioned the price yet. Well, you see, even taking into account all the great qualities of this watch, I was a bit surprised when I learned that the introductory price tag will be almost $200. This watch is due to go on sale later in the year for about $170, and with a discount code knocking off additional $20, we get to somewhat more manageable $150-ish price tag. However, we still have a very mediocre loom and quite an impressive bracelet. On a positive note though, this watch has still a lot going for it, like a pretty much Goldilocks proportions, a really unique look. I mean, I can't think of any other brand on AliExpress homaging Spirit Zulu GMT, not at the moment anyway. And not to forget a really well done dial, really good bezel, SKX GMT movement and a surprisingly outstanding quality clear sapphire crystal. So will all these great qualities sway you to part with $200 or even $150? Well, do let us know in the comments. But if you are more interested in outstanding Pagani Design watches priced well under $100, including with SKX GMT movement, then check my video over here. And if you found this review helpful, then smash that like button and of course don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. As always, thank you for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.